Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Berry Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. To view, please go to flinttalkradio.com and scroll down to the In My Opinion Show to view the latest in internet television. The In My Opinion Show can also be seen on Flint, Michigan Comcast Channel 17 every Saturday at 6 and every Wednesday at 8:30. Make sure you tune in tonight, people, because we have a very, very enlightening program. The In My Opinion Show can also be seen on Detroit, Michigan, Comcast Cable Channel 68 at various times. Consult your community calendar. If you would email me, and I have your email address, I will inform you of the times and the dates when future programs come on Channel 68 in Detroit. We have a wonderful show lined up for our millions of viewers worldwide, but first let me introduce my talented co-host. First we have Miss Denise Smith-Allen.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Denise. We have Mr. Henry Hatter.
Hi, Ron.
Welcome all to the In My Opinion Show. Let's get serious here, people. Let's talk about another murder in Florida. Playing like a vigilante cop, getting away with murder. Killing of black teen sparks outcry near Orlando, Florida, has resulted in a national outcry for justice. Trayvon Martin had dreams of being an aviation mechanic. However, the 17-year-old black teen is dead. The man who shot him has yet to be arrested, and angry protesters from across the nation are mad. According to the family and friends who knew Trayvon Martin, it would have been out of character for him to attack anyone. Self-appointed block captain George Zimmerman aggravated the situation and took the life of an innocent child who had only a bag of candy, Skittles, and a can of iced tea. The murder took place in Sanford, Florida, a town near Orlando. According to the 2010 census, Sanford has a population of nearly 54,000, 57% white and 31% black. People want justice for Trayvon Martin, not continuous debate about whether there is a probable cause to make an arrest. George Zimmerman killed a 17-year-old boy in cold-blood, premeditated murder. Race is the elephant in the room. Had Tyrone been the triggerman, he would have been arrested day one and be sitting in a jail cell. As a black man, we all know that murder of innocent blacks in America is all too common. 57 years ago, whites murdered and mutilated a 14-year-old black boy named Emmett Till in the Mississippi Delta. The white men were acquitted, a clear case of racial injustice. The fact that a young unarmed man, Trayvon Martin, with only candy, Skittles, and a can of iced tea could be killed by a self-appointed neighborhood watch captain named George Zimmerman is beyond comprehension. Being a black man in America has been called the hardest job in America. Young black men are much more likely than white men to be jobless, in jail, labeled suspicious, sometimes with deadly consequences. Florida is one of many states that have passed some form of the castle doctrine or stand your ground law in which self-defense is asserted against a charge of criminal homicide. Those laws were designed to allow a person to defend themselves. It is not to give people the right to go out, confront people, and shoot them down. As the father of 3 sons, I join all African-American parents and Americans of conscience everywhere in calling for an end to the war against black men and a thorough investigation of the death of Trayvon Martin and an end to the racist killings by police and other members of the criminal justice system. Just into the In My Opinion Show, from President and CEO of the NAACP, Benjamin Jealous. I wish I were emailing under different circumstances, Ronald Berry Robinson. All of last week I was in Sanford, Florida, pursuing justice for Trayvon Martin. I listened to community concerns about the Sanford Police Department and stood with Trayvon's parents and 30,000 others in Sanford, a town with only 50,000 residents. Tracy Martin and Sabrina Fulton, parents, have been pillars of courage. Like Mamie Till after the brutal murder of her son Emmett, Tracy and Sabrina have stood and shown the world what hate and violence have done to their child. and the nation and the world have responded. Their leadership has resulted in a global movement for justice for Trayvon, and most recently in the appointment of a special prosecutor to review their son's case. Also, the U.S. Justice Department has also entered this case. The Seminole County branch of the NAACP has played a critical role in igniting this movement for justice in Sanford. More than 24 years, Seminole County NAACP President Turner Clayton has served as a community leader, holding the city of Sanford accountable and responsive to community concerns. On Thursday, in light of pressure from Mr. Clayton and the branch to step aside, Sanford Police Chief Bill Lee temporarily resigned his post. The actions of you and millions of others like you have already helped get the wheels of justice in motion. We know Trayvon and his family have been in your thoughts and prayers. Now stand up publicly and send those thoughts to Florida State Attorney General Angela Corey, who will be overseeing the grand jury case. This is a tragic case of injustice in America, not only against Trayvon Martin, but thousands of other young kids, black and white, Hispanic, and other races. This insensitivity and murder has to stop. Mr. Hatter, what is your thoughts on this?
Ron, what you say is difficult for me to argue against, but I will try my best to give a completely different view of Trayvon's death. And I believe that my comments will be more global in how we look at the death of Trayvon here. And I will argue that the problem is far more complex than it is simple. We cannot simply just yell epithets across political or racial boundaries to solve the problem, because the press and the internet has a lot of that covered already. And that will bog down the process for many years to come. What I will do, I'm going to argue here, to make these arguments, to argue for Trayvon's case and all of the matter. You know, sure, I'm saddened by the death of Trayvon Martin, and he could have been my son, or anybody's son, any of our sons, and we would all react the same way. But until all Americans have compassion for young kids, whether you're black or white, or whether the kid that's killed is a black kid or a white kid, we're always going to have this problem. And if we don't show compassion for our kids, then they will not show it for us either. And so I argue that this is something that we've all got to collectively sit down and solve. We can't do it individually. We can't do it even for one child. We have to do it for all kids, because all kids are posed with the same kind of challenges. And that's why I say to you that we need to, as a nation, with a love affair for guns, with a love affair for Hollywood, walking around with concealed weapons in our belts, posed to threaten anybody who challenges us. We're bullies walking around the street. No disrespect to law enforcement officers or those, ma'am, but you have the authority to do that. But all of the other people walking around with the right to kill, to experiment with it, I consider that dangerous. We have police departments that ought to be willing to take care of that. They ought to be doing their job. But yet, in this case, we have to feel that we've got to join the Wild West and wear a gun on our belt to protect ourselves. But we still live in a very safe and cultivated environment in the United States. It's not as bad as we think it is. And it's too bad that the police department, traditionally, no disrespect, again, to law enforcement, because we need them, that have felt, some police departments have identified certain kids who dress in a certain way as the enemy of the state, and they have the right and authority to kill them. But there's a silver lining in this whole debate on this problem, and that is that people around the world are weighing in on the debate. Not only are the whites in this country, but other cultural groups are weighing in this, and other countries around the world are putting their voice into this message. And when that happens, something is like to change. But now for African Americans like myself, and like, because I have kids and I have grandkids, that would be under the same circumstance. And we've got to do something different, because what we see isn't working. We need to cultivate, and we need to value the lives of our kids. That's very important. No matter what the rest of the world thinks about the kids, we must do that. We must do it like every other culture does it. So I would say to you that we need to ask our kids to watch their activities, watch the people that they surround themselves with, and so that and to cease posing themselves as a target for the police department or for people who serve as vigilantes. I understand that even in Flint now, we have people who are walking around on the street as vigilantes, prepared to do harm to people who get out of line. And perhaps we need that. I don't know. We can't seem to cultivate the number of people who are killed in our communities from this kind of violence. But I would be pleased to hear your responses from that. I heard that they were on the street by someone today, simply because of crime in our own communities. Now, this is not related to Trayvon's situation, because we don't know the circumstances under which Trayvon was killed. We hear perspectives, and we hear innuendos and stuff like that. But we have to wait until all of the voices have spoken.
Denise, what are your thoughts on this tragic situation?
Well, when I first heard it, of course, my heart just was broken because another young male, African American, has been cut down in the prime of their life, not having an opportunity to fulfill whatever dreams and aspirations he may have had. Another mother is without their child, without their son. Another father is without their son. So, I always, look at that from the perspective of being a parent myself and how that would have affected me. I can't even begin to imagine the depth of sorrow that the family is dealing with as a result of this tragedy. Now, again, Henry touched on the fact that, there's all these various perspectives out there, but from what we have been given as far as information thus far, he was an unarmed man, a young person, not even a man, but a young person. And here was a person who was armed, who was not a duly authorized police officer, who had taken it upon himself, according to the tape that we heard, it said not to pursue. And so he went after this young man. And based on the confrontation, the life was snuffed out. I think that the discussion is needed. It is a worldwide discussion as we talk about perception. And I know that over the years, blacks, particularly in America, have always had to be guarded in terms of how they are perceived by the white majority. Okay, and this is in terms of appearance. Had this young man, for example, had maybe braids, or maybe a tattoos on his neck, or maybe a menacing, facial expression. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And so again, how would that have been presented? How would that have been portrayed? You understand? There's so much that I think about when we have this discussion, because again, we're looking at something that historically has happened over a period of years in this country. But sometimes it is so egregious and so outrageous that it calls for everyone to take a look at what's going on. All right. Now, as I was sitting here and I was listening to Henry, I thought about what would have happened had that been a Muslim woman who was walking around in what they call a burqa,
Mm-hmm.
okay, where only her eyes were available for sight. You know, what would have happened if that whole scenario had played out? I know that everyone would be up in arms about
Mm-hmm.
that because it was a female and because, you know, a woman unarmed, all right? And so, again, we're talking about a discussion that needs to continue to happen because we have our young people who are all over the place in the way they dress, okay? Now, to be condemned or hunted because of your appearance is just wrong, period.
Exactly.
And I don't
Exactly.
care what denomination, affiliation, racial group you are from, you know. If a person came in here and they had a hood on as a Klans person, you know, regardless to how I may feel about that personally, that does not give me the right to pick up a firearm and shoot this person because of my feeling about that. You understand? So, like I said, this is a very deep conversation. I am so sorry that this young man had to be a catalyst for this discussion. But the discussion is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have it, and we have to keep having it until it becomes a non-issue. You understand? Because there's no reason in the world, regardless of what we may think about an individual and their appearance, we have no right to bother them, no right to chastise them
Exactly.
in that way and come after them and end up getting into a confrontation where it ends up escalating to someone losing their life.
Exactly.
You know, if I could just add, you know, I was talking about what I heard about a vigilante type force in Flint. We need to make sure that we don't let that get out of hand here. And I don't know how the community perceives that, if this is indeed true. There should be some...
It is true because I've seen it.
Okay, then there should... who has oversight to see that our kids just don't get, you know, intimidated by the process or hurt by the process.
You know what pisses me off is this. It's just as much drugs and violence in the suburbs as it is in the inner city, if not more. All right? It's just not reported. Okay? Anytime you see a TV camera or crew out, it seems like it's always in the city, and they're depicting the worst parts of the city. All right? It's slums out there in the countryside too.
Yeah.
All right? It's poor people out there.
Yes.
All right? But it's always about the somebody's inner city, whether it be Flint, Detroit, you know what I mean, L.A., wherever, Chicago, New York. And you said something about cops, all right?
Yeah.
They're necessary, but, you know, I have, for a number of reasons, I have no respect for police, all right? I know they're needed, all right? But you don't know which one is going to turn vigilante, if that's a good word to call them, or murderer. All right, we've seen it time and time and time again. All right, where these cops they put Amadou Diallo or whatever, 40, 50 something bullets in this man. All right, and this other young boy that was getting ready to get married. Look, I mean, they put so many bullets in him. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. You see, this shit goes on and on and on and on and on and on, all right?
But Ron,
Now, as a black man, all right, okay, I have 3 sons, all right? Now, I've tried to teach them, you know what I mean, how to conduct themselves, all right? And for the most part, they do. But when they get out, okay, going to the clubs or going to the park, okay, and you've got people like this Zimmerman just out to raise havoc, all right? He's just out to hurt somebody because now he feels all big and brave because he's got a gun. Now, what's there to protect these boys. Okay?
You raise a very good point. Okay, but here's the other rub that I have. While we are up in arms about this, we should be equally up in arms about the fact that we have a lot of black on black crime.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is the problem, because we're concerned when someone outside of the race does it. Okay. But then when we are doing it on a daily basis, we don't seem to value it as much. And we need to have that conversation as well. And that conversation is kind of getting put on the back burner. And I think it is equally important. We're talking really about gun violence. We're talking about violence against another person. Okay? And we're saying at this point that the dialogue has to be ratcheted up so that we can get to a point where we can say, there are other ways in which you can handle situations other than pulling out a gun and taking somebody's life.
But see, there's a bigger picture, I think, than that. Why do we have, one has to ask themselves, why do we have black on black crime, all right? I'll just use Flint since we program our show from Flint, all right? There's no jobs. People won't hire you, okay? Flint is consistently ranked in the top 5, the most racist cities in America. All right. The governor has just taken cash assistance away from literally thousands of people, not only in Flint but around the state. If you're a real man and a real woman, okay, and you're out there busting your tail to try to feed your family, okay, and that social net is pulled out from underneath of you, what recourse do you have? I'm not suggesting it's right to go out there and rob and shoot somebody, but people have to eat every day. All right?
You know, Denise embarked on a real, I was going to kind of step into that deep water that when you said about the black on black crimes. And that's why I decided to say, well, we don't have enough about the facts, the circumstances that's all involved in this. We don't know what he did. And but you're exactly right. And Ron, I can submit to you that if you were a child or your dad or mom, before 1942, they were dirt poor. They were dirt poor. They had nothing. They earned substandard wages. They had no health care. What they did, they waited around the railroad stations and stuff like that for handouts for a job. And most of them that had permanent jobs were laborers. They were bootblacks. They worked on railroads to cook or something like that. And that's why you could see the rise of Porter's Union and stuff like that.
Sure.
But they were poor, and yet they didn't go around and kill people. They didn't kill each other.
Sure they did. There was.
Well, I'm talking about magnitude now.
Yeah, the magnitude of the killing, and I understand. You know, there's the psychology of what you're saying in terms of people not feeling good because they don't have various things have been taken away and what have you. But I think that what Henry is alluding to is the fact that prior to people moving into areas where they were able to come into the industry and work and do those kinds of things, they had to figure out a way in which they could survive. And while they were trying to survive, they also instilled certain values, dignity, and the value of human life. Okay, so regardless of what was happening, you know, those kind of thoughts were not entertained the way they are now. And I submit to you that a lot of what's going on here has a lot to do with the technology that has been presented and where guns are available, okay, and they're being taught subliminally how to use them through the games and all this other stuff that we see. And so then you have this whole array of people who have been diagnosed with different kinds of mental health issues and the medication. And we also know about those persons who are over-medicating themselves or taking medication that they're buying off the street. So there's a variety of reasons if you will, about what is going on here. Okay, but not to take away from what has happened to Trayvon, but I'm saying that this was a catalyst to open up some discussion,
dialogue,
some serious discussion about how we treat each other as human beings, as people. Okay, and when this man, who right now I believe that the authorities know where he's at, they know where he's at. Okay, and when he is brought forth, if he doesn't do something to himself, when he is brought forth, the justice system should handle this situation. Okay, because we're hearing all kinds of different things. And I'm not saying what happened, according to what they presented to us already, didn't happen. But I still think he needs to be in jail.
And be accountable for
and be held accountable for what has happened. And right now, the longer this thing plays out, all they're doing is setting the stage for people to continue to be angry, and that anger can spill out in a different way. And we don't want that.
Exactly.
We want
Action.
justice.
Yeah,
we want justice.
And we don't want others rising up and going after achieving justice on their own.
Yeah,
We want the law enforcement to take care
And
of it.
enough of the debate is, in my opinion, let's get busy and correct this, this situation.
And Ron, it's not going to get any
But
better.
at this time, unfortunately, we've got to close. I want to thank our wonderful technical crew, my very intelligent and knowledgeable co-hosts. This is Ronald Bay Robinson saying for the In My Opinion show. Till next time, stay focused.